Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today we're looking at this really powerful and strange paradox in our modern lives. We are just drowning in wisdom. I mean, it's everywhere. Every platform, every feed, it's all promising some kind of instant insight. You've got 30-second philosophy tips, motivational reels, these pastel quotes about existential dread. And they all promise to make us feel more grounded, more powerful, enlightened even. But if we have all this access to supposed depth, here's the question our sources are really wrestling with. Why do we so often feel weaker, more fragmented, and why do we seem to lack that inner resilience to handle just ordinary life, let alone a real crisis?
Well, it's because the entire meaning of philosophy has been turned on its head. We're diving into what our sources are calling cheap philosophy. It's this quiet, pervasive shift where the difficult search for truth stops being an internal struggle and becomes a mass market product. Historically, philosophy was the bitter medicine. It was that secret conversation you had with the truth you were most afraid to face. It wasn't about feeling good. It was about building the spinal column of your own integrity, your own mind. But now, it's completely left that internal battlefield, and it's entered the most corrupting place it possibly could, the marketplace.
Okay, so our mission today is to really pull this phenomenon apart. We're going to pinpoint this specific cultural machinery that dilutes truth, analyze the very high cost we pay for this fake depth, and then, and this is crucial, Ellen, the exact slow, difficult steps to get back to real internal strength. So let's start right there. What actually happens when this intense, difficult pursuit of truth gets hit with market forces?
The whole system it flips its standards. I mean, in its original form, philosophy wasn't for getting likes or building a personal brand. It was a tool of pure necessity. You used it when you were backed into a corner and there was, no way to run away from a painful reality, a loss, a betrayal, your own mortality. It was designed to hurt, to confront, and to force you to change.
And the market, by its very nature, demands the exact opposite of pain.
Precisely. The second a profound idea gets packaged for consumption, the requirement shifts completely. It can't be long anymore, it can't be difficult, it can't require you to be alone with your thoughts. It has to be a 30-second video, a digestible quote card, a comforting little soundbite. So instead of demanding you confront a hard truth, the market just demands that you feel okay.
That's a massive recalibration of value.
Yeah.
The original price for genuine depth was, well, it was high. You had to pay with solitude, with shedding your illusions, with enduring the friction of changing yourself from the inside out. That's a terrible sales pitch.
It is. So the market replaces the price of truth with the currency of convenience. The new measure of value is how easy it is. Easy to understand, easy to swallow, how quickly you can consume it, and this is the most important part, how easily you can share it. Real philosophy is structurally hard to sell because it requires you to feel wrong for a bit, to sit with that uncomfortable ambiguity. Cheap philosophy sells because it promises to take the pain away immediately. It doesn't perform the surgery, it just gives you a painkiller.
That distinction, surgery versus a painkiller, is so important. And it raises another question. It's not just that we're choosing the easy path. Our entire modern world seems designed to force this dilution. Let's walk through the 4 specific cultural mechanisms the sources identify here.
The first one is, without a doubt, the attention economy. This system runs on one thing, viewer retention. That's the modern currency. So if philosophy wants to compete, it has to play by the rules of the scrolling feed.
So if an idea takes, 10 minutes of quiet, focused thought, it's just dead on arrival?
Absolutely. It can't be heavy, it can't be long, and it definitely can't demand silence or reflection. I mean, look at someone like Nietzsche. His work is about grappling with profound despair, with destroying comfortable ideas. And that gets reduced to a single motivational quote for a LinkedIn post about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It stops being a thought process and becomes a viewer retention product, a quick hit of dopamine.
And the second force feeding this is what the sources call therapeutic culture. We are, as a whole, a collectively exhausted society. We're lonely, stressed. So it makes sense that we'd want to turn philosophy into some kind of spiritual tranquilizer.
That's the tragedy of it. It gets forced into the role of healing content. And the rules for healing content are the total opposite of what's needed for real depth. It has to be gentle. It can't ask you to take responsibility. And it certainly can't confront any real inner darkness or, the chaotic parts of life.
It becomes comfort food for the soul, something you just swallow to get through the day.
Yeah, right. But it's not designed to challenge your core beliefs or change you. It's just masking symptoms. And in doing that, it loses all its fire, all its power to transform.
Which moves us to the third mechanism, performance culture. This is where philosophy becomes an identity prop, a costume. People collect quotes, they learn the jargon like non-attachment or stoic focus, not to actually practice them, but to build an image of being awake or profound.
It's the intellectual version of buying expensive running shoes you never run in.
Exactly. You get all the signifiers of depth, but you haven't done any of the hard work.
Precisely. And when philosophy is an image, you only share the beautiful parts, the nice quotes, the successes, all the necessary ugly stuff, the shame, the weakness, the confusion, that all gets hidden. So you optimize philosophy to be beautiful, not to be true, and the whole thing becomes fundamentally dishonest.
And that leads right into the final mechanism, the fast food philosophy industry. Since the demand for the feeling of depth is so high, the market packages it. We get 7-day enlightenment workshops or find inner peace in 3 minutes.
The product has to promise instant results and be incredibly easy to digest. What you end up with is self-help, but with the flavor of profound thought. It's like zero sugar soda. It has the smell, it has the taste, the can looks slick, but there is zero nutritional substance. You drink it, you get a momentary high of feeling clever, and then you're just as thirsty as you were before, maybe thirstier.
Okay, so let's turn this around and look at the real consequences for you, the listener. If we're all just consuming this spiritual soda, what's the actual price we're paying for this light gas for the mind?
Well, the most immediate one is the desperation paradox. Cheap philosophy isn't popular because we all suddenly love depth. It's popular because society is in so much pain, financial pressure, existential anxiety, that we're desperate for fast relief.
It's like putting a bandage on a compound fracture.
It is, and the sources warn us. Philosophy is not a sleeping pill. It is surgery. It's meant to find the source of the pain and address it, not just soothe the symptoms. By relying on that instant relief, we avoid the very intervention we need.
And this directly leads to the loss of mental muscle. If you're always getting a quick, easy answer, you never train your mind to handle ambiguity. Real philosophy forces you to sit with uncertainty, to live with questions that don't have easy answers. That friction, that's what builds strength.
But cheap philosophy bypasses all that friction. It gives you simple, quick answers, so you don't build any intellectual endurance. And the result is dangerously low emotional endurance. When a real crisis hits a job loss, a personal betrayal, even a small problem can feel like a complete catastrophe. Your inner self just doesn't have the foundation because it's only ever been fed painkillers.
And that leads to maybe the most insidious result: subtle self-deception. We start to confuse collecting depth with having depth. We get really fluent in the language. We could talk all day about non-attachment or radical acceptance, but we haven't actually changed our behavior or our thinking.
And that self-deception can go on for years. You feel intellectually satisfied. You think you've done the work because you know the words. But when a storm hits, the words are useless because the internal structure needed to support them, the actual habits of discipline and endurance, was never built. You mistook the map for the territory.
So if we pull back to the big picture, the real danger here isn't that this cheapens philosophy itself, it's that it kills our own motivation to go deeper. If you think you're already profound because you watched a 60-second video, the journey just stops right there. Why would you start the painful climb if you've already bought the t-shirt from the summit?
That's the real roadblock.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. How do we start that slow, difficult journey back to genuine depth? The sources suggest it often begins with a very specific event: the complete failure of the light way during a real crisis. When all the easy advice just proves useless against real loss or betrayal, people stop looking for comfort. They start looking for weight trundling, as the source puts it. They seek structure, discipline, foundation.
They stop chasing the dopamine hit of inspiration and they start demanding groundwork. I mean, if you look at where the great philosophies came from, they weren't born on a stage. They were born from real pain. The Stoics responding to a collapsing society, the existentialists confronting meaninglessness. The rebirth doesn't start with understanding some complex idea. It starts with radical honesty.
Just admitting, I'm messy, I'm weak, and my quick fixes are not working.
Exactly. It requires one tiny, crucial decision. Stop running so fast. True philosophy demands stillness, quiet, and a willingness to endure the discomfort that the whole modern world is designed to help you erase. If you can't sit still for 3 minutes without feeling that twitch of anxiety, you can't even begin the work.
And that quiet effort, that's what leads to building new standards. Depth isn't a style, it's a standard of living. And it's built on these small, repeatable disciplines. So what are these disciplines that actually make a difference?
The first one, and it might be the hardest, is the pause. That moment of conscious hesitation. When something hits you, an insult, an anxious thought, a temptation, you don't react instantly. You create a tiny space between the impulse and your behavior. That pause is the shield that separates your principles from your feelings. Without it, you're just a slave to your instincts.
It sounds like constant internal work. It's hard.
It is. The second discipline is prioritizing consistency over inspiration. We're all conditioned to chase these big aha moments, but real change comes from the small, almost boring disciplines. Completing one tiny task you said you would, reading 10 pages of a difficult book, sitting still for 3 minutes, especially when you don't feel like it.
So it's the boring work that no one sees or applauds.
Exactly. That quiet behavior, done consistently when no one is watching, is what builds real self-respect. It lays the foundation. Inspiration is a flash in the pan. Consistency is structural.
And finally, the most painful standard. Choosing principles over feelings. This is the real test.
You have to keep asking yourself, am I choosing the right thing, or am I choosing the comfortable thing? The person who is truly living deep is the one who commits to a single, hard, principle-like integrity or discipline, even when it hurts. That's different from someone who just collects hundreds of comforting quotes that let them off the hook. It's the difference between knowing the rules of the game and actually being willing to play.
The outcome, then, is a kind of quiet transformation.
It's the silent incarnation of these principles. You gain internal gravitas, that silent weight that lets you stay calm and independent in all the noise and fragility of the modern world. You don't need to prove you're deep anymore, you just are.
We've seen how easy it is to become fluent in the language of depth while staying hollow inside, a member of the fake depth generation.
But the path back, while it's not easy, it grants a new kind of freedom. Freedom from your old reactive self. Freedom from needing that external validation, from proving your worth with a clever, postable thought.
The sources conclude so powerfully that true philosophy doesn't make life easier. It performs the necessary surgery to make you stronger to live a difficult life. So what is one habit, one small principle that you know you should live by, one that's hard, slow, and unexciting, that you will commit to today to begin building that essential internal gravitas? The real deep dive starts in that uncomfortable silence.